Today we're here with Ton, who is the founder of PhoenixCo. Phoenix brings together the world's most original thinkers, scientists, creatives, artists, top-tier investors, and founders in the US and Europe. Next to that, he's an investor in residence at TechLeap, formerly Startup Delta, working closely together with Prince Constantine of Orange. He's the founder and former partner at deep tech ventures firm O1 Ventures. Did I get that correctly?
Yes, that was perfect.
You're in the Netherlands right now. Tell me a bit about the Phoenix. It's so exciting what you've been doing with that in Angel Island.
It's kind of a crazy story. I think, Phoenix emerged out of this community. So we've actually been active quite underground in the last couple of years. And last year we decided as a collective group to spend, I would say, most of our time on trying to, I would say, rebalance the technocratic paradigm that exists today. Not looking at companies and advanced technologies just for making a profit or the advancement of it, but also to look at what it does for us as human beings and for the planet and for humanity.
Wow. Well, I want to read a little bit of your website for the Phoenix because I think it's a great segue into our conversation today. And it starts with connection. The great challenges of today are not insurmountable, but they won't fix themselves. And we are the individuals who are relentlessly and purposefully designing and inventing pathways forward in response. Although our technical capacity is exponentially unlimited, we are facing increasing volatility and uncertainty. We are living in unprecedented abundance, yet our behavior is increasingly transactional and competitive. We are connected like never before, but fragmented in our relationship with each other. So tell me a little bit about that.
Well, I mean, this passage was written based on the research and the books that we've looking at in the last couple of years. A lot of it has been around anthropology and also philosophy and also psychology. But I think, and unfortunately in these times, actually, I think the need and necessity for what we call serendipity and engineered serendipity has even increased, right? So, technological advances have given us an opportunity to connect with each other, but not on a personal level as we've done before. So what we want to encourage and what we believe is that, innovative thinking and imaginative thinking comes from getting together people from cross sectors, cross disciplines, and trying to, instead of actually presenting answers to the questions, and maybe even actually before even starting to figure out which questions they are, open this discussion and the format to see if we can fast track solutions.
So how have you done that in the form of your gatherings? I know you've brought together hundreds of people at several events. Can you tell me a bit about that?
Yeah, I mean, the gatherings are just one form of it. We like to call that what we kind of like designed is an approach towards gathering. And it has certain characteristics. So one thing is we always focus on people and people instead of organizations, leaving identities and egos behind. For example, not using keynotes or not utilizing different forms of how to interpret who is a guest or a VIP. Everyone's equal in that regard. So that kind of helps. And I think one of the things that really helped was a book that we wrote, that we read from a pretty famous anthropologist that is called The Rite of Passage. And it kind of like explains a three-course setting and how to get people into an open mindset, starting with, let's say, a container, a space. And this is also the starting point for our gathering, as we found out that near the city of Amsterdam, in the middle of nowhere, about 45 minutes by sailboat, there's an abandoned island, fortress island that we could use. And so we use the island as the container, get people out of their safe space, then try to create this, let's say, shared experience, accomplishment that leads to their personal transformation, and then provide for a safe return as a starting point, which is kind of weird because if you're operating in and outside of technology with people who have a busy agenda and a lot to do, and then ask them to commit an entire day or even longer to be in a group of which they actually don't even know who's going to join, but they trust it will be okay. I think that's kind of like the magic behind some of the gatherings that we try to host over the last couple of years.
And how do you build that trust, Ton, when you're bringing people together?
That's a really good question. I mean, obviously, it starts with building up, and I've been doing this, for quite some years. It's also an interesting fact, because if you really ask me that question, it comes back to me not being an investor for the last 8 years, but actually starting as a founder, and realizing that all of a sudden, when I sold my company and turned, as some would still say, to the dark side, all of a sudden, all those closed doors, started to open. And I wanted to voluntarily connect more people than I possibly could on a daily basis, to really open up these closed circuits in technology. And I realized you can do that if you, instead of having this transactional behavior, which is kind of like, part of the way the economy and the world operates. If you leave that behind and you just focus on genuine connection, people will start to appreciate that and actually start realizing that it's more about building relationships and trust on that level as well.
So you've had the experience of being a founder, and so you have that great perspective to understand what really fosters comfort in relationship building. So I'm going to read a little bit more from your website, because I think you're onto something here that's really important. Although the world has improved, humanity's approach has not kept pace with the complexity of its challenges. We aim to accelerate a global transition that is already underway, an emergence of collective purpose as a driving force. We don't pretend to have all the answers, but do seek to ask the right questions together. What do you think some of those right questions are?
Well, for me personally, that's been over the last couple of years, waking up in the middle of the night, asking myself, am I or are we okay with the conditions of life which are presented us today? And I think that answer is no, and everyone can feel that answer. And then so within all this, all this ability to connect and all the interconnectivity that you have, and the ability to connect like we're doing right now, across the Atlantic over Zoom, in the morning for you and evening for myself, something is missing there. And we, like I said, we don't pretend to have the answer to that question, but we want to see if we can actually start asking some different questions to people that actually are typically not asked those questions. So, an expert in the field of neuroscience or an expert in the field of biotech, and then asking that person what they think or feel about cosmology. And then so, for example, one of these questions that we're trying to answer is, is there any sense to engineered serendipity? Does it make sense to try to orchestrate these type of things? Another question is, how do we enact value-based, sustainable, mindful growth? Because the way the world is, going, and it's kind of like we're always on the run. And then so it seems like if you look online as well, especially also in our combined field on the venture side, we're only celebrated when we close a deal or get that new contract or raise that next funding round. And then so another question would be, how do we value compassion and resilience? Taking into regards that we're developing new technologies that can potentially change the world.
I love that. And first we have to change our thinking, don't we? And we have to change it collectively, because we're not going to make it far without each other. I really appreciate all of the things you're doing in creating community and really bringing up important questions that connect people on a much deeper, more meaningful level. I noticed on your website you had mentioned scientists, artists, thinkers. These are the people you'd like to bring together. Why scientists and why now?
Well, why scientists, why now? I mean, essentially, in my personal opinion, they have been doing some of the most important work, right? Discovering new technology, figuring out new ways to keep people safe, and just think about the application for healthcare in science, for example. But one of the things that I think is or could be missing, and it's not on a personal level, on the science level, but is missing on, let's say, the collective level, is that they also live in their own, I would say, respective bubble in a way. So they're collaborating on a scientific and academic level. And if you ask a scientist honestly to provide an answer to let me rephrase. Actually, I think one of the things that why we were very much intrigued to bring more, physicists and field medal mathematicians and Nobel Prize laureates into the network is that we think that if we connect them to the other sides of the spectrum and they can actually understand that there's so much more to be done, that could lead to hopefully a net positive outcome. So this is absolutely not a, let's say, coordinated effort, and we absolutely don't have the answers to whether or how this will work, but we're looking to create this, let's say, change in the perspectives.
I think I understand exactly what you're saying. And, we work with a lot of scientists at IndieBio, at SOSV. We're building biotech companies, and it's really important. Part of their transformation is to become entrepreneurs. And during that time, they're exposed to business. They're moving from academia into the business world. And a lot of the business world is based on EQ, emotional intelligence. It's far from academia. It's trusting your intuition. It's getting out there and learning how to build relationships that will then turn into something. So it is so important to cross-pollinate and to help each other grow. And essentially, I feel like that's what the Phoenix is up to. Tell me more about this recent thing I read about The Hague and what you're doing over with The Hague.
Well, like I said, we kind of asked ourselves the question. So let's consider that you cannot change anything or anyone except yourself. And then so look at the time you're spending. And then what is the most impactful thing you can do? And you can look at it from different perspectives. You could look at philanthropy and start giving away money, which could be impactful if you pick the right causes. And then the question is, what are the right causes? You can look at effective altruism, which actually doesn't look at, giving money or time, but just looks at, what's the most effective thing you can do. And for us, we thought, okay, so we build up this massive underground network of people that are so value aligned and that want to contribute and want to help. We realized the way to start is actually not on a, let's say, governmental or global level, but it's also start on a city level. So the cities actually provide us access and insights that we can then bring back to the community. And the nice thing about the cities that we pick right now, for example, The Hague being one, they're very much well known about their humanitarian efforts, and the Peace Palace is there. So that's just kind of like a way for us to also determine which themes and topics to tackle first with the Phoenix community. So it's either, I would say, city-based and then theme approach, or it is, for example, in the case of a big other partnership that we have currently, which is with Quantum Delta, which is a new quantum coalition trying to create the similar type of connections within the quantum technology space. Is, get in, dive deep, gather the insights, and then open up the knowledge to a broader community.
Interesting. Quantum Delta. Who's a part of that? Who started that? Is that?
It's actually super recent. So Quantum Delta emerged out of several initiatives, but one being one of the leading universities here in the Netherlands, actually in Delft, which is called TU Delft. I think they're on what is a number 3 in terms of academic and scientific research. And then we realized that this is kind of like a breakthrough technology that needs collaboration, also cross-sector, right? We're talking about extremely complex problems, theories that have not been proven. You need engineers, you need material designers, you need people to come together to actually figure out if there's, actually applications to be made with the technology itself. So Quantum Delta emerged out of that with the idea and the goal to create a specific community in and out of quantum. Cool.
So where is your perspective right now? Are you hopeful for the future? Are you part of the group of humans who wants to rebuild the future? Tell me a little bit about your vision.
Well, I'd like to call myself, and it's a term actually that was brought to me by a good friend of ours, Charles Marcus, who's actually also a quantum physicist, but he coined the term serious optimist. And I think that's what I want to relay, not only here, but also, globally to people, that you understand that while things seem tough, and you cannot turn your eye, you can also see that there might be room for improvement if you look at it from a serious positive side.
I'm going to remember that you're a serious optimist. because I like that being that term, and I like it. I like to think of you that way. What kind of future does a serious optimist build?
It starts with an idea, and the idea is, can we look at society today, and then can we replicate that society in a way that is free from these preordained notions and states, and then so an absence of this guaranteed meaning that we're all trying to figure out and to find, and then go to the core, and then find, like I said, this new level of connectivity, and I think that's kind of like the starting point, just to try to steer clear from these right or wrongs. Obviously, also on a personal level, I have very strong opinions about, for example, fossil fuels that obviously, we should make sure that we steer clear from in the future, or let's say value-based investing, which if you apply that methodology to investing, you will obviously look at something that has a net positive outcome for the planet as well. But that I would say is kind of like a starting point.
You talk about the net positive outcome for the planet. We just interviewed Tom Chi, and I remember that he attended one of your dinner parties that you held here in San Francisco, and I'm happy that that idea is now spreading, net positive for the planet. What do you know about biotech, and where does the biotech community fall within the Phoenix community?
Well, I think it's obviously, a pretty big part in it. A close friend of mine founded this company called Cyborg Nest. You probably know him as well. He has a fascinating background story himself. And I think, what's happening right now, maybe just, there's multiple perspectives. One is, of course, on the biotech side, there's a lot of health issues and health applications involved right now, and also risk for people trying to experiment at home. So having a more controlled environment there makes a lot of sense. On the other side, I'm very curious to learn more, and actually just read up on a book on one of the, let's say, the founding people around genomics, and I think there's so much to be done there. The question, of course, is obviously how do you how do you make it fair, and how do you make it safe?
That's true. There's a lot of ethics around it. So tell me, how are you staying grounded during these times? Are you sheltered in? What were your first thoughts when the coronavirus came about?
Well, to be honest, and I talk a lot about net positive outcome. I have to be honest in terms of I've been traveling a lot in the last 4 years as well. More than 250 days a year, trying to combine things so that it actually makes sense to go to these different locations across the globe. Obviously, when the pandemic hit, it was a pretty hard standstill. We actually went, just before it hit, we actually went to Copenhagen to visit the Niels Bohr Institute, where I was absolutely humbled to have a lunch in Niels Bohr's original office, which kind of like also inspired us to actually look at it from a different angle. Because if you look at, for example, the history of Niels Bohr, obviously one of the founding fathers of physics, if you look at the people who are very close to the matter, they will actually tell you that the most important contribution that he made to society was bringing together all these people from different angles and fields, and create this inclusive society. But anyway, when the lockdown hit, obviously it was not a total surprise, kind of like an expected surprise, which well, I would say permanently grounded me for now. I'm not leaving the house very much, except for the bare necessities. And like I said, it makes me a little bit sad to realize that there's absolutely no room for serendipity right now on the planet. So, which means that if you're not in play or you don't have a network, it's going to be it's actually extra tough. So I hope situation will as soon as possible go back to a new form of normal.
Can you tell me a little bit about what you're doing online, virtually, with your community?
Right. So one of these things, and I'm not sure how to best phrase it, but one of the nice things about the community is that you're involved, and you get, let's say, you become a part of this bigger idea, similar to, as for example, the dinners that we hosted over more than 40 countries in the last couple of years, we try to replicate that online, and this also kind of like starts with excellent curation and personal connection. So one of the ideas that started to spread when the pandemic hit and when we were all kind of like in lockdown is to think about this connectivity in a different way. So we started designing these elements that we call planes, level of realities, and then we actually try to move from a surface level, so let's say grounded from Earth, and then all the topics that involve that towards, I don't know, a biological level or a biological plane, and from there actually move to the anthropological plane, and then so what we're doing right now are these curated peer groups with people who would typically not or actually never meet in real life, and we bring them together in these sessions in Zoom, where we also not disclose their identities up front and ask them questions that are not related to their expertise. And those things seem to work really well in sort of like new ideation and new idea forming. It's kind of experimental. We just tried out a couple, but it works really well. Yeah.
I love that idea. So how do you keep people's identities shielded on Zoom?
Yeah, well, so I mean, obviously, when the moment the screen goes on, it's not shielded anymore. But I think it starts with this thing that we kind of like discovered is, if you invite someone to join based on doing the research, doing the background, and giving a very solid explanation why you think this person should join, it should not be necessary to explain who else is going to be in the conversation. So people, as a starting point, have no expectation on that part. The other thing that we typically do within the Phoenix network is that we privately ask people questions that they would typically not be asked before. So, for example, ask people, in your regards or in your experience, what part in the journey or phase are you? And they would then reply with, I just sold my company and I'm moving into philanthropy, or I've been through the journey and I'm going to dedicate my life towards 100% impact investing, or I'm very much disappointed by the options that I have. And then actually we reshuffle those insights that we have, and based on that, bring people together from these different walks of life, different parts of the journey, and an absolute different background as a starting point.
That's so cool. So I'm going to shift the conversation a little bit now towards leadership, emergent leadership. What are the qualities you've seen amongst the hundreds of people that you've worked with and brought together are essential for leading us into a new future? It's healthier, it's more deeply connected.
Well, I mean, I think relatability, kindness are two of the qualities that I see most in people that I also see leading without actually leading. So I think that's also kind of like part of the aspect, right? So setting yourself up to become a good listener and instead of the one that's talking all the time. And I think it has a lot to do I think it has everything to do actually with culture and taking that into regards. And culture means that, for example, you lead by example. And I think, the new forms of leadership are no longer based around, power structures or identity, but they will be based around people that actually, get things done, appreciate the people around them, have the ability to bring better people into the system. And that's kind of like how I feel about this new form of leadership. It's also a very much softer form of leadership, I would say.
Like that. So let me think. I see you as an emergent leader, hence I invited you on the interview. So I think you are an understanding of what we need to do to bring people together to have really important conversations. And I would love to do more collaborations with your community here. Here with SOSV and IndieBio. So I look forward to continuing this conversation. Is there anything that you wish for the broader community, people in the audience who are listening today, to know about the Phoenix community and what your big ideas are?
No, maybe just just as a closing statement, I would almost say is like everything is possible, and you just have to believe that it is. And I think an idea in itself can be very powerful, which can lead to discussion. which can lead to more openness, which can lead to transformation. And it starts with individuals and people. And the Phoenix community is open for everyone. We're a small group of volunteers, and we're now slowly building out this organization. So we don't have the chance to answer everyone at the same time. But if you feel that you'd like to make a contribution, we're happy to see how we can help you guide and make that happen.
And how do we find you on the internet?
It's on the Phoenix.co.
Phoenix.co. All right. Well, thank you, Ton. This is wonderful. I will look forward to seeing you and chatting with you soon.
Likewise. Thank you so much.
Okay, I'm sorry. We might have to edit this part out or keep it in the interview, but somebody just started mowing their lawn outside.
Okay.